We're building a national landmark about Jesus that's going to be globally known.
Were you wrestling with God or were you wrestling with yourself?
Oh yeah, wrestling myself, yeah. After 2 days, just basically waved the white flag and went, all right. And then all the money came in one day. And what she didn't know was the person who owned that land had emailed me a few days previous. He tells me God had spoken to me 19 years ago. He tells me God had spoken to him 19 and a half years ago about the same vision.
But at what point, Richard, do you go, God's got this? You know, like, and you stop having those low points? Like, where's the doubt coming from? Hello, my name's Ian Young, and this is Together, the podcast. I hope if you've been watching the past episodes, that's made you watch this one, because we have got a wonderful programme for you today. I'm joined by a new friend, somebody that I've sought out actually, called Richard Gamble. He is the founder of the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer. Now, you might not know what that is, but today we're going to find out from Richard himself what it's all about, what he's doing, and also a bit about Richard and his journey with God along the way. So I hope you enjoy today's podcast. As always, like, subscribe, make comments, ask questions, and we'll try to answer as many of you as possible. So I hope you enjoy today's podcast. And Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited today. I've sought you out, heat-seeked you down. It's taken a few years, but you're here. Richard, you know, I like to start these podcasts with, like, who are you? Which is a big question. And people talk about what they do.
Yeah.
So I'd really love it if you could say, you know, who are you?
Yeah, well, my normal introduction is I'm just a bloke.
Right.
Became a Christian when I was 20 years old. I'm entrepreneurial, I guess. I'm not really easy to fit in a box. Married, 3 kids.
Wow.
Been married 26 years now. I find it difficult to describe, really. I don't know. Different people have different views of who I am, but I just think I'm just a bloke just trying to do what God's told me to do.
Mm. What does that mean for you? How do you know what God's asked you to do?
I think, so I became a Christian when I was 20 and started to hear God's voice. And I remember very early on him asking, it sounds a bit cliche, but asking him, I felt like he asked me to help a lady carry her bags from a supermarket, and which I did, expecting her to sort of fall to her knees and go, what shall I do to be saved? But she went, oh, thanks very much. Mm. And what I learned from that was, they're telling you just got to do what God tells you to do. Mm. And so over the years, my wife and I, we've just decided that's, we're not going to try and add up all the details or the ramifications. If we're really clear God's told us to do it, we'll just do it. And sometimes those are little nudges. The amount of times that God has said, just phone this person, and you phone them and you go, you all right? And they're like, how did you know?
Yeah, wow.
And there was one footballer who was painting his walls and going, God, if you're there, I want to know. And then he got a text from me going, is everything all right? Do you want to chat? And so, and of course, when that happens to yourself, you're like, oh man, I really am hearing God. Mm. And it's just being attuned to that voice, really. I believe God wants to speak to us every single day. Mm. And I think if you're faithful in the small things, then he knows that he can trust you with that level of obedience.
Cool. So what's your wife's name?
Wife is Sarah.
Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. Thanks for lending him to us for today. And you have 3 children.
3 children, James, Lucy and Isaac.
Wow. How old are they?
So James is 21, Lucy's 19, Isaac is 14.
Wow, so
I may have got one of those ages.
Oh, right, yeah. Let's hope you have.
My daughter often goes, "How old am I? When's my birthday?" I'm not good on stats. I can tell you, scores of Leicester City over the last 10 seasons, but birthday is always an issue.
That's funny. So, you got saved when you were 20.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
54.
So, been saved a long time.
Yeah.
tell us about your testimony. Like,
Yeah.
how did you meet God, and where was your life before you met God?
Yeah, so, the first experience I had was I was 11 years old, and my nan had taught me how you put a glass against the wall to listen to a conversation. And so I thought, I'll give this a go when I get home. And was listening to my mum and dad talking, and my mum saying that she was worried she might have cancer.
Wow.
And I wasn't brought up in a Christian home, but I just sat by my bed, put my hands together, because I thought that's what you do, and prayed and said, God, will you look after my mum? Which he did. But I sort of sensed in that moment, it was like, the only way I could describe it was like a huge hand around me going, it's going to be all right.
This is at 11, right?
Yeah. So from that point in time, I believed in God. And then I sort of, on and off for like 9 years, went to different churches, and just every time I went, just thought, this is not real. What is this? And it was only when I was 20 years old, just finished university, and then I got invited to go to a church, and then, what I would describe as a happy clappy. But the difference for me was I was looking around, I was like, these people really mean what they're singing, what they're saying. There's a reality to it for them. And then I felt exactly the same feeling that I had when I was 11 years old, which I'd now say is God's presence.
Right.
And utterly inappropriately, this guy runs up to me and goes, I'm a first-time visitor, runs up to me and goes, did you feel the presence of God, Which he'd probably advise somebody you should never really do with a visitor. But I was like, yeah, I did, yeah. And then one of the guys at church said, do you want to go out for a beer? And I went for a beer, and he just shared the gospel. I was like, right, okay, let's do it. And I was like most young men, I was a rascal at that time. And went to university when I was very early, and coped with, because I was 17 when I went to university.
What did you study?
Studies pushing it. I've got economics on my degree at the end of it, put it that way.
Well done.
Yeah, the joys of a photographic memory got me over the line, But I sort of coped with being younger than everybody else by drinking. But yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. And for me, a massive moment in the sense that I thought, I have been waiting 9 years for somebody to sit down and share the gospel with me. I've been to multiple churches searching. It's taken 9 years till somebody has done that. So I think I've got at the heart of me an evangelistic. It's actually, there are people out there. It's not that hard. We just need to tell them. God's already.
So what did they do in that pub? Like, they just shared what Jesus is God's son, and
Yeah.
and then led you to a prayer, or like what was?
Well, he just went.
Sort of
He just sort of explained the gospel. I think he did one of those diagrams of a gap and put the cross over it or something cheesy like that. I don't know. And then he was sort of like, well, what do you think? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he said, all right, let's go back to my house. And then we went back, and he just prayed the prayer. Then gave me way too many booklets to read. Oh, you need to read this, you need to read this, But, and then we did a book for about 10 weeks called Living God's Way.
Right.
And yeah. And then I was all in. I was, at the time, I was living with a Kylie Minogue lookalike girlfriend, left her, stopped drinking. The drinking was just not an issue, just like gone like that.
I've heard so many people say that, and that was my experience as well.
Yeah.
Is I had things in my life that I had tried to stop, like smoking, drinking, amongst some things. And, not all at once. Like, I didn't give it all up all at once.
Yeah.
But, periodically, things just fell away from me, and they just weren't as hard.
Yeah.
Like smoking, I'd given up for a year and started again. And then I met God, and about, a year in, I was like, oh, I really shouldn't be smoking. And then God's like, yeah, you shouldn't be smoking. I'm like, well, you have to help me. This is the conversation, how I think it goes in my head. And then it just falls away from me, and I just never have again.
Well, I had the one I was also
and amazing.
I was getting really into gambling.
Right.
The reason being that I had to do a dissertation, and one of the topics on the dissertation was gambling. And as my surname's Gamble, RS, which spells gamblers, I thought that would be funny on my dissertation, gambling by gamblers. But I started working at bookies. I got really into it. And I remember my last bet was putting a month's wages.
Yeah, that's insane.
On a horse called Bronze Cross, would you believe? And then the guy that was helping me, I said, "Is it okay to gamble?" And he went, "You're just going to need to work that one out for yourself," which was really good. And then I went into a bookies the next day, and I thought, if God wants me to win, I'll win, and if He doesn't, I won't. And then that killed it for me completely.
Yeah, it's so good. It's interesting because I won't gamble, and it's never been a problem for me. I just choose to now really, say I won't. And I play golf, and like the lads are all, we'll have a $5 a hole, or we'll, I'll put a tenner in, and and I'm like, I just won't do it. I'll even give you the money, right? And if I win, you can all have your money back. Yeah. But if you win, you can have my money.
Oh, just to be clear, I'd still be putting a tenner in.
All right, they just can't get their head around it, and I'm like, because it's just not about the money for me. I still want to participate, and I want them to be clear that, like, I won't gamble at any level. I won't.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting, isn't it? Like where your line is and that gambling, and they just can't get their head around it. It's like, harmless. And I'm like, well,
Well, that's where you have to go within how the Holy Spirit guides you, don't you? Just
well, you don't want to be weird, right?
Like
I don't want to, because I don't want to alienate all these guys that I might be able to talk to Jesus about. And what I've noticed over the last few years is as, I like walk with them and being a friend, and that when they have times of trouble, it's always me they come to ask about, X, Y, and Z. And like, I really enjoy that conversation. But I think in the past I've pushed it. And actually just the waiting for it to be asked, it becomes a better conversation.
I totally agree with that. I think you've got to earn the right to be heard. You've earned the right to be heard. And
that's a great statement.
I think you have to be able to build the bridges to be heard. And many times in my life, you meet people and you want to tell them straight away. It's so much better when they just phone you up and go, "Mate, can you help me out?" So much better. So I'm a bit like it. So I would say I'm evangelistic, but I don't want to Bible bash people. I think that's really for me. Now I'm not. There are some people who've got a gift at that, and they're absolutely brilliant at it. It's just not who I am.
Yeah. I have to bring people into relationship with other people because I can only take them so far.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm excited about God.
Yeah. I
can tell you the gospel, and I can walk through some of the Bible, but I'm just not a great teacher, or I'm not great at apologetics, or, when they're asking about, proof of why the Bible is, true. I'm like, well, I've learned it, I've seen it, I've heard it, I now believe it. Yeah. I can't remember the exact detail of how I got to this understanding. You've got to go read this person or meet that person. You certainly need help from the body of Christ, I think.
Yeah.
So tell us about the project that you've been doing for a very long time.
Yeah, well, it's been... so it's called the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer.
Yeah.
Basically in 2004. Now, this does sound a bit odd, but in 2004, I just felt God told me to carry a cross around my county just to get people to think about Jesus during the Easter. And so, we've had that conversation. I didn't want to Bible bash people, but I wanted people to... It's Easter, for goodness sake, and all I can see in the supermarket are chocolate eggs and, chocolate bunnies. So I just got this guy to make a cross for me, and I just carried it around for like 80-odd miles.
Wow.
And since I've heard a lot of people have got saved seeing it. People a decade later have come up to me and said, "Oh, you bloke who carried that cross. That started my journey and me coming to find God." And
So that was in 2004.
that was 2004.
So you'd met your wife and were married at this point.
Correct,
Right.
yes.
What did she say?
I think she's quite used to me. All
right, okay.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So,
What did your kids think?
well, they were too young then. So, James would have been a couple of years old. So I did it, and then what was interesting was you started to hear all these conversations that were happening, and one person in my church just came up and went, "I'm just so embarrassed that you're in my church." Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And but it started to get loads of coverage, loads of people were talking about it, and then my dad, who's not a Christian, is in a governmental meeting, not even in Leicester, in a different county. And in the middle of the meeting, this woman said, "I saw the weirdest thing this morning. I saw this bloke in a suit carrying a cross." And my dad said, "Well, that was my son."
Yeah, wow.
And then shared the gospel with the room. This is what my son believes.
Wow.
So a non-believer is sharing the gospel, And so, and at the time I was thinking about, or discussions were in place about me becoming an elder of a church. And I was praying, "God, what do you want me to do next?" And then this sort of idea flashed through my head. Can't really describe it pictorially, but it was just of a wall by a motorway where every brick represents an answer prayer. And went home with a bit of a twinkle in my eye. And my wife's like, "Come on, what are we doing?" I said, "I think we're going to build a national landmark." And that's the idea of it, really, is just a way of declaring to the nations that Jesus is alive and he listens and he answers prayer. And so that was really the concept. And it was sort of like I couldn't shake it off for 10 years. And Sarah would often go, what are you going to do about that wall thing? And in my utter naivety, and there's been a lot of naivety on this journey, in my head I'm thinking, if I can raise £20,000, I can buy some land. I was quite a way off financially on that. But that's what I did. I was just thinking about it for 10 years, getting different ideas, talking to people about it. Most people just went, "Right, yeah, good one, Rich. That's another rich idea, But I do think one of the important things was speaking the dream, not just holding it to myself, but just talking to people about it all the time. And then with about nine years ago, just felt God say, "Right, you need to crack on now, son."
So what were you doing in that time? So you've held a vision for 11 years, I guess. Did you do any work on it? Did you go and find anything out? Or was it just an idea,
It was just an idea. I met with a few architects and said, "Could you draw something for me? Could you have a go?" And none of them did. They just gave me polite smiles. But I was, at the time, planted a couple of churches, successfully and unsuccessfully. Definitely learned that church leadership was not for me. And
Tell me why. Why was it?
I was either going to kill the church or they were going to kill me. It was like, who's going to get there first, really? I just didn't have the patience for it or the grace. And I'm very project and task focused. And you can't, I don't think you can lead people like that. It just wasn't me. I think you sort of, there's sort of like this hierarchy of, you do this and you lead a youth group and then you lead a home group and then you move your way up. And I was just realising that sort of sausage machine, not disrespectfully, but that sort of process was just not for me. And you start to realise a little, as you grow older, you start to think, I'm a bit odd.
Right.
I'm actually a bit weird. I know I think I'm okay in my own head, but the stuff that I say and the stuff that I do, it's not really everybody else's bag. So I was doing that with the church.
But
started a
what made you want to do something? Because I'm looking at you now, and I think two things, right? I think you're clearly very entrepreneurial and like smart, and the comments you've always made is like, "Oh, Richard again." So I'm like really interested. Is like, why would people say that about you? Because I guess it's a sense that people are either frustrated or dismissive because you've got yet another idea.
Yeah.
And then yet somehow you faked or pretended to yourself that you were going to be some kind of patient, graceful, merciful leader in a church. Like what happened there for you? What was happening at that time? Why did you think that?
I suppose it was I'm wholehearted.
Yeah,
So,
I can see that.
So I was thinking this is the way to serve God.
Wow.
And
I was going to ask who you're trying to please.
Yeah. Well, there was a bit of trying to please man in it.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely part of my journey. And I can remember some people saying to me, "You're too emotional, Rich." And just having that real struggle within me. And I got to the point where I was like, no, I am emotional. That's who I am. That's how God's made me. I can't change that about myself. I don't think that's what God wants to change about. But that doesn't fit. That having that very highs and lows doesn't fit into the stability that I think you need when you're leading a church.
Right.
So, and I was, I'd got my software company, I did chaplaincy, but I also remember going to a Bible week once and somebody going, "Oh, Rich, how's it going?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing this and this now." They're like, "What, something else?" And I was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I get bored after 3 years, which, by the way, is a miracle that I've been on this 19 years.
Well, yeah.
But, so you just pick up little things. I do remember once at a Bible week, was sitting around this table. It's about 25 of us. And this one lady's going, "Oh, I get really frustrated with Matthew sometimes. He just doesn't do much around the house." And then she said, "But then I think, yeah, but I could be married to Richard Campbell." I was sitting there thinking, I'm here. And then another woman went, "Oh, that's what I do as well when I get..." I'm like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you laugh about it, but like, what did that make you feel like? What was your reflection on that?
Oh, I was fine about it.
Right.
Really fine about it. Because I know I have set fire to a bathroom and nearly chopped a tree into a house. So, it's well known that my DIY skills are not up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm okay about it. And my wife's okay about it. And that's all that matters, isn't it?
So what would you say, like, the good qualities are that come out of that? Because, for me, it's when you say emotional, I'm kind of interested in that because I can't imagine you being a teary mess and, not able to go on. I don't think you mean that. I think, you get maybe frustrated when people are slowing something down or, you don't have patience or like, so what does it mean? Like, you are emotional. What do you mean by that?
Well, I feel things personally.
Right.
And I need to I'm just all in. If it's great news, it's the best news that's ever happened in the history of man.
Yeah.
And if it's bad news, it is the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of man. And those two things can happen within a minute of each other,
Yeah.
So, but I think that's what you need to drive through something that's never been done before. And you have to have a passion, and you have to have a commitment, and you have to be a little bit naive. And a little bit stupid maybe at times.
You wouldn't do anything, I don't think, if you thought about it too hard.
If I knew what I knew now, I would not have got started.
Yeah, wow.
And the thing that frightens me about that statement is that's probably still true.
Yeah.
If I knew now what's going to come in the next 5 years, I'd probably go, right, we're done.
Wow. So what was the next 5 years?
Well, we've got to get this built. So we've actually started today, would you believe it? So there's...
Building?
Yeah, a bit of the building started today.
Wow.
So that's exciting, just building the compound.
Well, let's go back a bit, because I think I was interested in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's really good. I just want to say that I'm hoping that what we do today is it's really clear that there'll be other entrepreneurial people.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those guys, right? So I'm
Yeah.
sat in front of someone going, I felt everything that you felt. Like everything that you felt. And my thing is always to put my light under a bushel, to try and be this normal person, be a pastor, or, I've done things to try and please other people, not because I was trying to be noticed, but the opposite, really. I didn't want people to say, oh, at least I'm not married to that Ian Young.
Yeah.
And actually what I'm encouraged about is I see a guy that's got some more experience than me that's like, well, actually, no, I know who I am, and that actually God's got value in who he made me, and that you need that energy to start projects, to be entrepreneurial.
I remember in worship once, just worshiping, and then I'm thinking about cricket,
Right.
and I'm just and then I'm probably thinking about what I'm having for tea, and I remember just saying in worship, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't even concentrate on you for like 30 minutes. And I just felt Holy Spirit say, that's what I love about you. And so I think it's, you learn over time. Well, I think we all have the opportunity to learn over time who we are and what God loves us for. And that should shake us out of standard moulds, really. I feel very grieved when I see people that are stuck in a mould and just think that's not who you are.
Me too.
And
when people lessen themselves, I hate that.
Yeah. So I guess over time, with some good people around me, you start to be secure in who you are.
Yeah, so that's good advice for people, really, isn't it? Is like, get some good people around you. So before we go back to the story, because you've had this vision, you've held it for 9 years, just what do you think that means to have good people around you? Like, who have you put around you and why? And have you done that consciously, or what's that experience been?
I have done that consciously, and I've changed those people over time. So I have a number of people that I talk to on different levels. I've got a mentor who's based in Australia, and we Zoom, and he's phenomenal. I've got a pastor who understands me, which is terrific. He's absolutely happy with me going, yeah, I'm not going to stay for the word, is that all right? And he's fine with it, Not that I do that every week, but, he's secure as well. Just building relationships with good friends. I don't have many good friends. Count them on one hand, because I'm not easy to be with. And one of my friends has said that, you're just not easy to be with, Rich. And I'm like, well, why? I think I'm great to be with. I'm with myself all the time. And he's like, well, he said, because you're just challenging. You're just challenging the way that you live. So I think just putting good friends, but different levels, and having people who can speak into your life with no angle, I think is really helpful. Because they've got no agenda other than to help you.
Yeah, they're like not your boss. They're not married to you.
Correct.
They're not relying on you for support,
Yeah.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, they are. So you got to hang on to them when you find them. But one guy I've spent, he's an entrepreneur, and there's different times where I don't have anything formalised with him, but there's just different times when I'll phone him up and go, mate, I'm on the floor. And he's been really frustrated with me about the vision of this for years. And I finally, after about 6 years, finally twigged and got it and said, "All right." And I was able to like describe what this vision is about. And he was like, "That's what I've been trying to get you to do."
Right.
So it's just having people to push you as well, I think.
Right. Yeah. So you held the vision for 9 years, and then what was the starting point? Like, what was the first job on the list? Might not have been the right first job, but like, you know, where did you start? Where did it become a reality?
Great question. Well, I think because that's the issue, by the way, with most people's dreams is they never get started.
Yeah.
They never get started. So I remember the moment really clearly. I sat at my desk and I'm running about 12 projects. I'm stressed out of my head. And my wife comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" "Oh, well, I'm doing this. And they were all big projects and stuff. I said, "What do you think you should be doing now?" I said, "Well, I think I need to be working on the wall." I said, "But the thing is, babe," I said, "that's not going to pay any money. It's not going to..." She went, "Well, none of these 12 projects are paying any money, so what's the difference?"
Yeah.
And I was like, good point. So start-off point for me actually was sitting down with my wife and going, "I'm going to go for this now, and this is going to cost." And us just agreeing to do that together.
Yeah, wow.
Then persuading my pastors that it was a good idea.
So
It took a long time.
I just want to be clear. So the first step is speaking to your wife,
Yeah.
and having like a joint vision on it. I mean,
Yeah.
how did that conversation go?
Very matter of fact,
Right.
because she's very black and white. She went, "Well, God spoke to you, didn't he?" "Yeah." "Right. What's the issue then?"
She sounds great.
She says, "Well, what's the issue then?" I mean, and she has always been, "Well, God's going to do this."
Right.
And there's times when I'm like, "But yeah, you don't know the detail, babe.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because
Yeah.
God's going to do it."
Yeah.
So then I just, had a few conversations with people and then came up with the idea of running a crowdfunder to just get the design. I thought people are going to need to see this. And somebody gave me the idea of running a competition with the Royal Institute of British Architects.
That's cool. Have you? And before we go into that, so have you cast the vision for it yet? Like, you said there was a guy who was trying to get you to.
No,
so this is 2004.
Yeah,
you're like, we need a design for the wall.
I don't feel I got the vision for this, like really locked down until the beginning of this year.
How weird's that?
I know.
So you're doing something, you're like getting designs made, right?
Yeah.
But you don't actually have.
Well, I've got the overall. I don't want to tell people about Jesus,
Of course.
but I feel like God's really refined that in me this
Wow.
year, and it's it's a journey, isn't it? So So all I look back on it, and there's because I've got this guy who's been covering the whole journey on video, and he's got video of me going, "Yeah, I'm going to nail this. I'm going to absolutely nail this." And I was utterly convinced that we're going to raise millions on this crowdfunder. People are going to love it. No idea. We launched it, and again, how did we do this other than the grace of God? God introduced me to this guy who somehow got me on BBC Radio 2 to launch a crowdfunder about building a national landmark about Jesus, where I didn't know what it was going to look like and I didn't know where it was going to be, and yet they got me on. I mean, amazing. And I thought, this is going to take off. This is going to be, what a great way to start. And by the afternoon of that day, I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And that was day one. And I needed to raise 45,000.
That was, like, I guess, for the drawings and...
Yeah, that was for this global competition to get it designed.
Right.
And I did it. Everybody said, that's not how you run a crowdfunder, Rich. You do half the amount that you need, and then you're definitely going to get some. And I was like, well, God's in it or he's not. I'm going to go for the full amount. But if I was £1 below that full amount, you get nothing.
Right.
So again, all in.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, people are saying, just do 20, because if you get to 20...
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It's like people going, don't build a big one first, do some little ones just to, I'm like, all or nothing. So 4 days to go. I've got to raise £45,000. 4 days to go. I'm on 22.
Right. Wow. So you've done great. Wishing you listened to the advice of your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely stressed out of my head. I'm being sick. I'm thinking, I have gone onto national radio to tell about this great vision that God's given me, and it's all going to be over in 40 days. And it's an embarrassment. So I did something I've never done before. I went up a hill in Leicestershire, just prayed through the night.
Wow.
And never done that before. Don't really know how do you do it.
You had carried a cross around Leicester though.
Yeah. But I just, how do you do it? And so I'm just, I was ranting at God. I was pretty cross.
Wow.
And anyway, there was just...
All night?
Yeah.
Was it cold?
No, it's all right.
Did you prepare? Did you take them food? Or you
No, none of that. No, that prepared. That doesn't... No, I just went, I'm going to stay up all night tonight, and just got in the car and drove to the hill, And, but there was a moment about 3 o'clock in the morning where just like this bright white light filled the sky. It was just like in an instant. It was and I could see my shadow, and I just felt God say to me, "Your shadow's not long enough. You got to get closer." And then He said, "Your job is to lead in peace." And that peace was definitely not what I was in at the time.
Right.
And so I had 2 days just wrestling with God, just trying to find that peace. And what He really was saying was, this is not your project, mate. It's mine.
Right, wow.
So stop holding on to it so tightly.
Wow.
So that's what I did. After 2 days, I suddenly...
Were you wrestling with God, or were you wrestling with yourself?
Oh, yeah, wrestling myself, yeah. And then after 2 days, just basically waved the white flag and went, all right, it's yours, I'm not going to. And then all the money came in one day.
Wow.
From all over the world.
Do you know how that had happened?
No.
Do you know any of the donors?
I knew. Well, there was one donor who had said, I want to give, and I knew it wasn't going to be a small amount. And he said, but the way I work is I have to wait till God gives me a green light.
Right.
And he's like every day going, God, have you got the green light? And it was like, no. And he's getting frustrated with God, going, I think you've told me to give, but why aren't you giving me the green light?
Yeah.
And then he gave $5,000, but it wasn't, it was like 10s and 20s. It was from countries all over the world.
Wow.
People who I've never heard from since.
Wow.
And it just, and
that's incredible.
It was incredible. And
I thought you were going to say, and this person that I've known, that I have a relationship with, gave the rest of the money.
No, it was incredible. People are phoning me up and going, I can't concentrate on my work. I keep looking at it because it was like,
wow,
it was just rolling over. So we hit target with a day to spare.
Wow.
And, that for me is a real, okay, if I was wrong about this, God could have bailed me out then.
Yeah.
That was the moment to go, well done for stepping out.
You best blooming finish it now, Richard.
Yeah, I know. Well, I need a bit more than 40 grand.
No, but like that. I guess that's what it makes me feel like. It's God's been clear. Like.
Yeah. Well, we've had loads of other stories like that.
Wow. Tell me them.
Well,
So this is the first crowdfunder. Let's try and keep it linear,
okay?
Because we're both not linear people.
All right. Okay.
So we've done your nine years of
picking that up already.
We've done 9 years of vision, and we've got to. You started it, and you started with a crowdfunder to raise 45 grand to do some designs.
So we do.
Did you do the designs?
We do the competition. I mean, even
do the designs now look anything like the designs you had then?
Not far off the winning one. Yeah. So, so we get like our 5 designs.
Right.
We get 125 entries.
Wow.
From 28 countries across the world.
Wow.
We get they're picked anonymously, so I've no idea where they're from. With a set of architectural experts and different people in the room.
Like, will it stand up? Like, somebody's gone, will it stand up? Yeah. Will it be here in 100 years?
Exactly, which is very important. And then I present Stephen Timms MP offered to host a parliamentary reception for us. So I'm standing there giving this vision, and one of the MPs, I've got national newspapers there, MPs, House of Lords. I got £5 in the bank.
Right.
And one of them says, well, this is a great vision, but are you going to really deliver this? And I said, I've got a really big backer behind me. Unfortunately, they didn't follow up on who that was.
You did. You had God.
Exactly that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, because the answer was somebody who owns 1,000 cattle on 1,000 hills.
Right.
And then I was just like sort of got this gnarly voice going. You got nothing. You're in fantasy land. And so my wife and I decided we were invited to go to a conference in the States, and we decided to sort of treat it as a retreat. And I wanted to pray for land. That's what I was looking for. I need the land now. Because the designs, there's concept designs, but you need to do the proper design once you know where it is. So go over there, and then this woman comes up to me and says, I believe I've got a word from God for you. He's got some heavenly land for you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I've got a team of people praying for the project, and I say, hey, this is what God said. He's got some heavenly land.
So this woman has said this. Is it this after hearing you share the vision?
No, she's got no idea.
She should know who you are.
Didn't even know who I am. No,
Never met you before.
No.
Wow.
And then, so one of my team says, because at that point then, we're just starting to use some of the money to try and pay for a company to look around the UK to find some land for us.
Right.
So I thought, I'll put that on hold, because this one of my team said, well, if God's told us he's got some land, I'll just ask him where it is. So I'm like, all right then. So she basically prays, sends me a map, goes, here it is. And on the email it said either this is the land or the person who owns it is really significant for the project. And what she didn't know was the person who owned that land had emailed me a few days previous and said, do you want to meet?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So I meet with this guy, businessman, gives nothing away. And I'm with him for a long time. He's asking me loads of questions about myself, clearly sussing me out. Then at the end of it, he says, well, he tells me God had spoken to me 19 years ago. He tells me God had spoken to him 19 and a half years ago about the same vision.
Wow.
Build a landmark about Jesus.
Wow.
So he goes away and comes back, says, prayed about it, had a chat with my dad, and we've decided to give you some land.
Awesome.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell him about the woman circling the land because I didn't want to manipulate the situation. And he...
Well, and if he sat there steely-faced, you're not feeling, I'm going to share all these prophetic words.
Exactly.
He's a business guy. Yeah. I don't know him.
Could be my first and last meeting.
Yeah, right.
So he comes back and over a period of time then gives me a piece of land. Takes a few months, but he says, this is the piece of land. And it's not the one. So the woman who's circled the land, she's rich, this is not the one. And I'm like, this guy's just given us a piece of land worth over £1 million.
Yeah.
I'm going to rejoice in this.
Yeah.
Anyway, after 6 months, he phones up. He says, Rich, a bit awkward this, but I can't give you that land anymore. I'm like, oh, goodness sake. And he said, but we'll sort it out. So we have to go through the whole process again, then gives me another piece of land.
Do you know why he couldn't give you that piece of land?
Yeah. It was due to some property interests locally.
Yeah.
And then 6 months in, so that's after 6 months, and another 6 months working on this next piece of land. But there were some regulations on the land that were a difficulty. And I remember my team going, we cannot proceed with this project until we have the land contract signed and sealed.
Yeah.
And I just felt in me at that moment, I've got to press on. I have to press on. So we did it, and totally against our advice. If we'd have waited till the land contract had signed, we'd been waiting another 5 years and it would have killed the project.
Wow.
But another 6 months pass, get this phone call, Rich, it's happened again. Can't do it. I'm like, you've got to be joking. And I did my second pray through the night. Anyway, his dad then says, stop messing this lad about. He said, his dad was really interested. He said, I hear loads of people saying God's told me to do this. And he goes, I'm rarely convinced. He said, but I do think God's in this. And he said, and I don't want to be the man who's had the chance to give him land and passed it by.
Yeah.
So stop messing him about, give him the best piece of land.
Right, wow.
Pays his architect to look at all the land he owns in the Midlands. Comes back with the bit the woman has circled.
Wow. Wow.
So that is on the edge of Birmingham, in between the M6 and the M42.
Right.
HS2 is about 100 metres away from it.
Wow.
And right next to Birmingham Airport.
Wow.
And
incredible.
It's incredible. And then there's another sort of added bit. We were with the BBC because they've been doing this documentary. And we're on the land. And have you heard of the What 3 Words app?
Yes.
So it's sort of, for those who listen who don't know, it basically replaces sort of coordinates with 3 words. And they've basically, every 3 metre squared
like
the planet.
Fruit juice.
Yeah.
And anyone can find you on that exact square.
Correct.
Yeah.
So somebody goes, I wonder what the What 3 Words are. Get the What 3 Words are app. I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, right, okay. Looked at it and it was Occupy Lands, congratulations. So, when you've got those things, when you've got those stories, which only God can do, it just gives you the strength when you're faced with impossibles. And I've been faced with impossibles multiple times that you just know God's in it.
Yeah.
You just have to dig deep.
So you had that experience of getting the land. So do you own the land now? Mm-hmm. Okay. Or, I guess the Wall of Internal Prayer owns it rather than Richard Gamble, right?
Yeah, definitely right.
Yeah. So when was that? What year was that? Could you gone from 2004 to going, I'm actually going to do something?
Yeah.
How long did it then take to get
So
the
I think, I only literally signed the land last year, I think it was.
Wow. So you were talking about that for a long time.
Yeah. So for various reasons. But the next step is you getting the plan in.
Right.
So,
which you're going through now, I guess.
No, we've got the planning.
You've got the planning.
Got planning permission.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a story.
Yeah.
So we've got...
So before we go into that story, how are you living at this point? How are you making a living? Because you've just done 10 years. Have you getting a job? Are you doing some stuff on the side?
So I'm living off my money that I had sold my software business for. But then that ran out, I'm trying to think how many years ago it was. I think that ran out about 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
So then I'm doing a bit of consultancy and getting a little bit of money from the Wall. And then it's just sort of gradually, this is just taken over.
Yeah, like the Wall's become your full-time job and project.
Yeah. So for the first few years, it's tent making.
Yeah. So the first 16 years, it's not been a ministry that's been afforded you to live. You've kind of working it on the side, as God said, but you've also trying to provide, I guess, for your family.
Yeah. And I've got one donor now that's come forward and is supporting me, which is amazing.
Amazing.
So, so I don't have to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had times when, at one time where I'm gonna default on my mortgage, and I'm talking to. I could see it coming months off, and so I'm talking to the bank manager, trying to remortgage. Like, you're not earning enough to remortgage, and I'm doing everything I can. And then I can remember on the Saturday morning looking at my bank app and going, that's it then. I'm going to default on Monday. And I was just like, right, over to you, God, then. I remember just putting on my Google Home and just worshipping and just, just singing songs of, I'm just going to trust in you, Lord. I've got nothing else. I've asked everybody I know and nothing else has worked. I'm trusting in you. Then got a phone call. God had woken up in the morning. and just told them to give me some money. And it's funny when somebody phones up and says, "Oh, God's told me to give you some money," and I'm like, "Great, can you transfer it in now, please?" You know, and you know, again, those times where you just go, "God's got this."
Yeah,
He's got this. You know.
Yeah. And how he uses people.
Yeah, just people being obedient. We had one where we couldn't pay our staff. And I'm trying to concentrate to get the planning over the line. And I said to my two main guys, like, you need to focus on getting the money because I've got to get this planning over the line. And the start of the month, we had the figure that we needed. And as we go through the month, how we doing, boys? And it was just like, same figure. Well, what's the deadline? Friday. Get to Friday. How we doing? I'm like, that's the same figure it was a month ago. And yeah, we haven't raised anything. And I'm like, right, okay. And they said, well, listen, but the thing is, today's not really the last day. Monday morning, first thing Monday morning's the last day because that's when the wages go out.
It's payroll or whatever, yeah.
So they said, and it was great. I was really blessed by them. So they went, so we got the whole weekend to pray. I'm like, oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're praying over the weekend and this guy is riding on his bike, knows nothing of the situation, just feels the Holy Spirit say, you need to give to Eternal Wall. Gets off his bike on a Saturday morning. I mean, it's impressive of him, stops his bike straight away, gets his app out, is about to transfer the money, and he feels God say, no, you need to do that first thing Monday morning. So, like, literally the money came in just like 5 minutes before we needed to pay.
Yeah, wow.
You know, and then the following month, all of a sudden an investor steps up and says he'll cover for us.
Yeah, what a relief.
Yeah.
How good is God?
Amazing. And, you know, it's amazing. I mean, I'm sharing like the little highlights.
Well, I've got a question for you.
All the lowlights in between that you...
Well, I know, but I've got a question for you. So,
Yeah.
and this might be a bit challenging, so buckle up, you know.
Okay, don't mind that.
What do you think about, like, God keeps doing all these things for you? Like,
Yeah.
for the last 20 years,
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is, like, in your time of need, God
Yeah.
has always stepped up for you.
Yeah, correct.
Or said it's not this, or
Yeah.
it's not now.
Yeah.
Which you might have been angry about at the time. I can't imagine the land not working out 3 times that you were chuffed about.
I wasn't exactly skipping through the field.
No, because you'll have been disappointed.
Yeah.
And that would have been a low point. And I understand that from a worldly perspective. But at what point, Richard, do you go, God's got this? You know, like, can you stop having those low points? Because I'm hearing the story of God's greatness and goodness. That, yeah, you're weaving it purposefully like that for today, I get that.
Yeah.
But
It's
also...
a great question.
But also, like, it's like, where's the doubt coming from?
Well, was it Elijah that poured the water on the... it was Elijah, wasn't it, who poured the water on, and then he goes off and then he's like, I want to die.
Right.
And what I love about that story is it's impossible for fire to come from the sky to light the fire.
Yeah.
So pouring water on it has absolutely no impact because you're asking for impossible anyway. Impossible has no gradients. So if it's impossible for me to get £5, if it goes up from £5 to 5 million, makes no difference. I'm still in impossible. And yet he just has that low point right after.
Yeah.
So there's something in human nature, I think, where you have to constantly recalibrate your mind.
Yeah.
And that is my ongoing challenge.
Yeah. I can see that fight.
Because you sort of, I had some news last week, nearly, put me on the verge of a panic attack. And you're just like, you're on the edge, like, oh my word, I've had so many times where the whole thing's been close to just falling over. And then you have to go, wait a second, God's got this. And you remind yourself of the stories. But the facts, I have this phrase, I'll never let facts get in the way of truth. But sometimes the facts they mount up.
Yeah.
And the pressures, and particularly the pressures that come internally, can mount up. And so I have to go away and I have to like remind myself of who God is and what he's done.
Yeah.
And that for me is a continual process of recalibrating my brain to the truth of who God is and the fact that he's behind this.
Yeah.
And
I can see there's been toil, like it. You wear it, but I like
it look
not because of your looks, not because of your looks, but
yeah.
You know, I don't think 20-year-old Richard, you know, was crying at God's goodness every week. And I think as a man that's matured, you wear that vulnerability with pride. And, you know, I think the thing that still intrigues me is, you know, that you've had that journey and that there's clearly an enemy out there that's to destroy us, because you know it still brings doubt. You know, you talked about that voice that you heard that was completely the opposite of God.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm interested. You said you have to recalibrate your brain. I think we all need this. I think your experience is what everybody experiences. I know God. I met God in a remarkable way. You know, speaking for myself, I have no doubt that he exists and that he loves me.
Yeah.
And yet I still can be depressed or not understand why something's not happened. Be mad at him. Who am I to be angry at God?
Yeah.
And yet I still do it all the time.
Yeah.
And then he's good to me again and again and again. And I just think, oh, I'm an idiot. And why can I not do that? So what do you do to be...
There's a life hack. There's a life hack on that.
Tell me, Richard. Tell me.
Well, it's in the Bible.
Tell me.
And it's over and over and over and over again. And once you see it, you'll see it in virtually every book in the Bible. And that's remembering what God has done. And when when the people of God forget what God has done, God reminds them what he's done. I am the God that parted the sea.
Right.
And so it's creating around you an environment where you are never going to forget what God has done.
Right. Get some godly people in your life.
Yeah, but do the physical as well. You know, what did Joshua got the 12 stones to make a monument at Gilgal, to remind the people this is what God has done. I got a friend who God paid for his mortgage in one day.
Wow.
You know, mad. And he's got a massive stone that he's put by his driveway. So every time he drives into his house, he remembers this is God's bought this for me.
God's house, yeah.
Yeah, I know people who have jars and put like a button in a jar every time God answers a prayer or something.
Yeah, I've got a prayer board and I put all the prayers on, and the answered ones go in this little box that I got from Jordan, actually. Nice. It's the nativity scene in, what's it called, Mother of Pearl, that had been made by some Christians in Jordan. And I do that, and I do get them out and go, oh yeah, wow. Because but why do we forget, Richard? Like it's...
because
I'm mad at myself, and I'm mad at you as well, because God's been so good to you. He loves you,
and I get mad with myself, just like, gosh, what? But it is because of that challenge of the detail and the facts that we just get swamped in.
We just get so human about it.
Yeah, and I think if you swamp yourself in what God has done, I mean, my wife's got a little book and writes down all the blessings of God. And, you know, my wife and I went on holiday for a few days, and we actually stopped and went, how has God blessed us? Or wait a second, we got the price is cheap, we got an upgrade on the room, we wrote all these things down. It's counting your blessings. Yeah. And then when you're in that valley, when the facts are just drowning you, you start going, wait a second, he's done this before. But the important thing then is that actually, see, I believe when God answers a prayer, it's a spiritual gift. And there's a bit in Corinthians where Paul says, for the answered prayers of many, the gracious favour granted. And gracious favour granted, that word is charismata. Well, if you believe that when God answers a prayer, it's a gift from him, what do you do with it?
Right.
Do you care for it? Do you steward it? Or do you just go, oh, that's amazing.
Awesome.
Throw away, let's go for the next one.
Yeah.
And I've been shocked by the amount of organisations that I meet that don't have any record of how God has answered their prayers. And actually, and somebody said to me, he goes, I've never known an organisation that just gets so many answered prayers, and it has become part of our culture in the office. I mean, I'll tell you one that happened the other day. It's mind-blowing. But that's because, and I believe partly it's because we're stewarding them wisely. So we're making sure we write them down, and we're making sure that we're telling people for their encouragement.
Treating it as a gift.
Yeah. And ultimately, the whole project is about proclaiming the deeds of the Lord.
Yeah, wow. So let's go back to the...
Sorry.
No, this is good. It's good. I mean, I'm learning. I hope everyone else at home is too. I'm being encouraged. So we got to the point where...
Got to planning, didn't we?
To planning, and...
So we're in planning. I got one councillor who's massively anti.
So this isn't your local council either, because it's for this bit of land...
Correct.
In Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know everyone.
No.
I
mean, I've spent time trying to get to know them, But I've got one councillor. He's like, this has got to be multi-faith.
Right.
We're on the edge of a.
Which I can imagine every council in the country saying.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's my red line.
Yeah.
I said, I'm creating a piece of public art about Jesus.
Yeah.
You can't dictate to me what the art looks like.
Yeah.
And that's my red line. He's like, it's going to cause race riots, etc., etc. So I have a number of meetings with councillors and blah blah blah. Then we basically have this main meeting, which is the press are there, the public are invited, and all these contentious planning issues are discussed. We're the last one on the bill. And they throw all the questions at us. My planning consultant, she's done a brilliant job, so she's got everything covered, And then the guy says, right, now what I didn't know at that point, if they'd have taken a vote, we'd have lost 14-0. Thank God I did not know that. And then this woman, then the chairman said, does anybody want to make a statement? And this one councillor said, yeah, I want to make a statement. And she just turned and looked at me like I was, something on the bottom of a shoe. Her face sort of contorted. I just felt God give me a bit of instruction on that, And she just went off on a rant. I mean, it was like a rant, and just ripped me apart, really. And because it wasn't...
personally or the project?
Yes. Yes. Both. And my planning consultant, because she wasn't saying anything about planning, she was like, is she for us or against us? So I was like, she's definitely against,
Right.
Accused me of being in the dragon in Revelation and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, the chairman turned her mic off. And what she'd done, she turned the room.
Wow.
And the multi-faith guy then puts his hand up and goes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put a vote of recommendation for this project, and everybody's hands go up.
Wow. So
that didn't have any legal sense, but what it did, it just turned it all, and then a few weeks later we had the vote via Zoom. This all happened, then COVID kicks off. I mean, don't forget, we've got where we've got in the middle of a pandemic. We've kept going. Everybody just thought we'd die as soon as the pandemic kicked in. We got stronger. So then the planning got approved on Zoom nearly 3 years ago.
Wow. So what's next?
So, we do need to build it. That is a key plan. So we're at the moment now. So we built the access road, and we've just done the blessing on the land. So we had about 400 different church leaders come and pray on the land. I have to tell you this story. It's a funny story. So I'm briefing the team, and I'm like, on how are we going to do this? Because we've got, Protestant, charismatics, Methodist, you've got the whole Greek Orthodox. How do you lead a meeting? And I said, can we not have it weird, guys?
Multi-denominational.
Yeah. Can we
what do you mean by weird?
Well, exactly. But that was my brief. Can we not have it weird? Let's... So one of my so the guy that was leading the worship sent through his songs, and I phoned him up and I went, Joel, what's going on here, mate? The people are not going to know these songs. And he came out with this great line. He went, Rich, what do you want? Do you want Christian karaoke or do you want the presence of God? And I went, I'll go for the presence of God.
Yeah, he said that before though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's got that one lined up. Yeah,
it was good. But one of my member in the team in the sort of order of service, she's got blowing the shofar horn. I'm like, Sue, what are you doing?
Right.
We said no weird. What's that?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what it is, but evidently it's supposed to cleanse. I don't know whether you...
Yeah, it's in the Bible. They used to blow the shofar.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, really? We really want to do that? And she's like, yeah, I really feel it's
I've been at lots of services where they blow the
Have
shofar.
you?
Yeah.
You obviously go to weird church.
Yeah, I do.
So
Spirit-filled, mate.
So I'm like, oh, okay, all right then. Anyway, 2 weeks go on. They can't find anybody they can't find a shofar.
Right.
They can't find anybody to blow the shofar.
You got to text me. I'll hook you up with shofar.
So I'm about to go to America and I'm like, guys, can we stop faffing about? We've got too much on. Get a vuvuzela. It really doesn't matter. Just because the idea was everybody was lining up on the land with the same prayer, and then we were all going to walk across the land praying this prayer. So every blade of grass has this, declaration of the blessing of God. So I get on the plane and go, sort it out. I don't want to hear any more about it. My COO just says, Rich, we got to sort this out today, otherwise Rich is going to kick off. And they're like, yeah, but it needs to be a shofar. So they sit and pray. They've got a day to sort it out. They sit and pray. While they are praying, they get an email from this guy saying, I know this sounds a bit weird, but I feel like God has called me to blow a shofar across the country. Is there any chance that you'd give me permission to blow it on your land?
How cool is that?
I mean, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what that does for me is I'm like going, God, how does that work?
Yeah.
I've got a list of 100 things that I need you to help me out on. Shofar blowing, not on the list, Lord, not on the list. And it really interesting for me, because I think there's always lessons between God answering a prayer. He's always interested about the journey before and after rather than the moment. And the lesson for me was like, actually, I've got to align myself with what's important to God, not what I think is important to God. Because for me, I'm always thinking about the money because we need more money. But for God, it's like, yes, that's sorted.
Yeah. Like they're minor problems.
Yeah, I just don't know how right now, but it will get sorted.
Yeah. It's so good. So you have started building, as in there's an access road, but just share, because you said like a year ago you got a really clear vision.
Yeah.
So before we talk about what we're building, let's talk about the vision for it, and then we know.
Yeah, because I haven't really explained what we're doing yet, have I? So, but
yeah, we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes and still don't know what you're talking about. Might have to do a bit of editing. Yeah. No,
so it's to me, it's really clear. If you look in Psalms, there's so many scriptures that talk about proclaiming the deeds of the Lord. Proclaiming the deeds of the Lord to yourself, that's how that recalibration happens. Proclaiming the deeds to your friends, proclaiming the deeds to the great assembly, and proclaiming the deeds to the nations. That's what we're doing.
Right.
So what has helped is having clarity on what we're not doing. I'm not explaining the deeds of the Lord. I'm not going to justify why God does some things and then doesn't do other things. I'm just proclaiming the deeds of the Lord.
Right.
All that other stuff, that's the church's job. I don't want to do the church's job. I don't want to, you can sort of morph into all these things and you end up replacing what is the job of the church. But I feel our real clear thing is proclaim the deeds of the Lord.
Come on.
And if you look at Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, tens and tens of millions of people Google that every year. And if you do Google it, all you're going to find out about is a French bloke that built it. But when people Google Eternal Wall, what they're going to find is a database of in time, millions of answered prayers, because we won't stop at 1 million.
Yeah.
And people will
How many have you got now?
36,000.
Wow. So you've just been collecting
976. Yeah, we got a long way to go and need help.
We can top that up.
Thank you. We need help.
We've got 25 years of people
Great, let's have
asking for prayers, and we'll pour that in.
We need people to do that. I'll tell you about it in a little bit. But the point is, anyone then, because we will probably, who knows, we'll get a few 100,000 people visiting physically, but we'll get millions of people going, what's that eternal wall about?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a global landmark.
Yeah, and people are driving past and people are going to Google it. And,
yeah. But even, if
you're going to have an opening day and all the news is going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Angel of the North, they reckon 51,000 people see Angel of the North every minute.
Yeah, wow.
Because its image is used all over the world.
Right.
So if people do that,
is Angel of the North a Christian?
No,
it's
just about industrial. Right. It's Anthony Gormley's sculpture about the industry. But the point is, somebody's going to find that database. And they may ask, well, what about my situation right now? And they type in the situation and then see what God does. And there might be a whole range of different answers. It might be God answered in a suddenly, God told me to wait. It might be God said no, and this is how he helped me through the grief and suffering of that no.
It took me 19 years and counting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that is the vision, to proclaim the deeds of the Lord, because I tell you what, the media are not going to cover it.
Yeah, well,
and we have
they're going to cover the statue, I think.
The
monument, whatever.
Well, exactly. It becomes a catalyst, because people often say, why would you spend money on that?
Yeah,
and that that is a straw argument.
And the secular media aren't going to cover it.
Exactly.
But the Christian media might.
What?
I'm saying is we put it's just an edge for me to say how important Christian media is, and how as a Christian we need to get behind Christian media, because if not we'll lose it. And
but it's
right, it won't be heard because
but it's interesting up to this stage. We've got more coverage from the secular media than the Christian media.
Yeah,
because I think the Christian media. I understand it. If it fails, secular media lose nothing, do they?
Yeah.
Whereas I think in the early days, the Christian media were like, okay, well, is God in this? But I think everyone's now starting to see that God is in it, and moving it.
Yeah.
But the point is, we create a catalyst for millions of people to hear the deeds of the Lord.
Come on.
And that is not just per year. Not just in a year, we're talking about something that's going to last for more than 100 years. It is staggering what we will achieve. And, I don't think there's a bigger project globally. I know that sounds a little bit gobby and whatever, but tell me another project that's going to have that longevity. And, I think it's really important. I just want to encourage everybody, pray about, can you be a part of it? Because what an opportunity.
So what's next, Richard?
So we are...
What do you need to do, and what are you trying to build? And
what's been interesting on the journey is that God's always provided just enough. So right now, what do I need? I need to pay for 1 million bricks that are being delivered to a factory. And I don't think we're going to suddenly have all the money coming in having it all up front. I just don't think that's the way it's going to work. So we're just, so what we're doing right now is we're building this construction compound on the site, and then we are now negotiating with contractors. And God willing, end of the year, maybe spring of next year, we'll have a final price, and then we'll press a button and we'll start building. So we should start building spring 24, and then 2-year build will open in April 26. What do we need in between then? I need a whole lot of answered prayers. and I need a whole lot of money. My suspicion is that the money so far the money has been easier to get hold of than it has the answered prayers, which is really interesting. So more people have donated than shared their story.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. Why do you think that is?
I think that's part of our culture. I think we have a culture in the UK where we are reticent about celebrating success, and I think political correctness, that the rightly placed desire to not offend, has overtaken us to such a point that the church is on mute. That we're so nervous about offending that we're not actually sharing the gospel anymore. And obviously there's loads of people. I don't want to offend all you people who are sharing the gospel. There's loads of people sharing the gospel, but we are, I do believe, largely on mute.
What if it's not that? What if it's like I could share with you? We could, if we had all day, I could sit and share 8 hours of my life of answered prayer.
Great, do it.
Yeah, but my willingness to write that down for you is probably 1 out of 10, just because I'm busy, I've got other things to do, So what if it's a subject of like how easy it is to do as well?
Well, you can record it on video, you can record it on audio, you can even phone somebody up and tell them the story, and they'll type it down for you.
Well, that's good to know.
So we're trying all our different ways. At the end of the day, it comes down to a value statement. It comes down to how much do you value this? How important is it to you? And gosh, if every Christian in this country gave up drinking coffee for a week, it would pay for it. If every Christian in this country gave up playing Candy Crush or whatever for 10 minutes and just shared an answered prayer instead, we'd have all the stories. It comes down to value, and that's our biggest challenge, really, is trying to communicate to people, listen, we are fast chasing towards a nightmare scenario for me of getting this built but not having the stories. We'll get there because God's in it, but I can't manufacture that. And the way that we've done it is we've because I've not really told you what it is yet, have I? So it's a giant infinity loop. Imagine a giant white infinity loop.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to send us some drawings, and we'll put them on the link.
Beautiful, so you'll be able to see it.
Kind of what I think is, hopefully today, perhaps it will inspire some people and it'll raise their value proposition. I know what it's like when you're in a project, right? So for you, it's like it's high value.
Yeah.
I'm still sat here going, like, I've really enjoyed my time today. And you're here because I like the project, I like you, and I still think it's a 1 out of 10 to share my testimony, because I've got 100 other places to share it as well, you know.
Of course, but
it's not because I don't want to. It's
no, I know.
I don't value
I get it.
I feel a bit like edgy with you and challenge you on that, is that, what if I'm sharing my testimony through the work I do at church? What if I'm sharing my testimony in media with 310 million people around the world?
Praise God. Send us the recording, we'll put it on.
So we can help you with that. We should send you all our testimonies.
The thing is this: in 100 years' time, your story, long after you've left the planet, is going to lead somebody to find the God who answers. You're absolutely right. Everyone, you'll have 101 people sitting here, they'll tell you their project's the most important. I get that.
Yeah, or their ministry, or the calling that God's put on their lives,
But we're building a national landmark about Jesus that's going to be globally known.
Yeah.
We're going to share stories that are going to go across the globe. And I'm not asking for much.
No.
I'm just asking for 5 minutes. 5 minutes of sharing your story, and you're going to impact thousands of people. Specifically your story. I mean, that's like mega, isn't it?
Yeah, it is mega. It is mega. We have the same problem, Richard.
Yeah.
We have tens of thousands of people that have asked for prayer requests, millions of people that have sent in prayer requests over the last 25 years, millions. And, if 1% of those have been answered, 1% of those we've ever been told about,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like...
well, it's that story, isn't it, of the one who comes back and says, thank you.
Well, it's like you said, even in where God's been good for you, like you've shared the story today, but equally then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, now I've got this next problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the challenge is when God is good to us, we're waiting for him to be good to us again and again and again because we're like...
But it is part of our culture that we struggle with. I do believe that. And that's why I think it's interesting that of all the places in the world, God's decided to build it in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's fab. I think we're not a Christian nation anymore. So the fact that you've got planning for a Christian landmark is a miracle, let alone all the other stories of...
But I don't believe we're a secular nation either.
Mm.
We did some research that found after the pandemic, I think it was 50% of 16 to 25-year-olds saying they were praying at least once a month.
That is where the opportunity is, for sure. I've met loads of young people that don't have don't really know the God of Christianity.
Yeah.
I'm saying that purposely because early Christians didn't call themselves Christians. Yeah. They know the God of Isaac and Jacob. They know, the Bible, and they're looking at it a different way. I've had really interesting conversations with some young people, and you're right. I think there's a huge opportunity there.
And of course, because we are merging the digital with the physical, so the idea is on site, you point your phone at any one of the bricks, your phone lights up and tells you the story.
Yeah,
it's a real digital experience that we believe is going to reach a younger generation in a different way.
Yeah, I think the media asset is the most exciting part of it because you don't have to go to it to log onto a website and still engage with with a monument, and it's like the stories are going to be there, and I do think there's power in the word of your testimony, and if you can. That's what answered prayer is, isn't it?
Correct.
The testimony of God.
Correct.
So if you have 1 million testimonies there...
It's power. It's powder keg.
Yeah, and people are looking for encouragement or proof or, feeling part of something, whatever it is they're searching. I do think that that's the real powerful part are the testimonies, So what if you build a wall, the website in itself, if the wall gets knocked down, that digital asset is incredible.
Yeah, Not planning for that to happen, but
yeah, right. No, yeah, of course. Like, I'm not dissing the monument at all.
I know.
I'm just saying, like, the testimony of God is never changing.
Yes.
It'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Whether the wall is or not,
Well, this is a catalyst, I believe, for people to encounter that.
Sounds amazing. Richard, I think...
We're there.
We're there. Like, I've really enjoyed talking to you and hearing about what God's plan for your life is, really. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for you and your wife and your children and their commitment to the project as well. I'm sure it's cost all of them. If we had another 2 hours to talk, I am really interested in, like, your kids' journey with it and their faith, because that can't have been easy the whole time either. I think on behalf of God TV and all our viewers and partners, we just want to encourage you.
Thank you.
And keep going for it. And I will be praying for you.
Thank you.
I think we have some people to thank in the other room. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So as always, a big thank you to Dimitri, Trevor, Noah and Rich that are on the other side of this wall, changing the cameras and allowing us to have the conversation. And finally, just thank you to all of you at home. If you have enjoyed the conversation and you like the idea of the project, please check out the website. We'll put all the links and all the details in the comments. And just think about liking and subscribing to the channel and on the conversation. It just helps us to meet more people like Richard and to share in the glory of what God is doing, but also through people's testimonies of what God has done in and through their lives. It allows us to learn discern and be discipled by God through people's testimony and story. So it's only with your support and kindness that we can carry on doing what we're doing. So a big thank you to all of you at home. So for myself, Ian, all of the God TV team and Richard, I say goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time on Together, the podcast.